Hey everybody, welcome to the video, and please excuse the poor lighting in this video. I am still in Ohio, so I think the shadows all over my face, and my face looks red, but nothing I can really do about it as of right now. Don't have my usual setup, don't have my green screen, so hopefully it doesn't look too bad, and just bear with me over the next week or so. But we were talking core plays for Week 16 of the NFL season over on DraftKings, looking at my ownership projections for them, their projections, some of their props over on PrizePicks, just some of my favorite plays on the entire slate. If you think that sounds cool, sounds fun, you're a first-time listener, make sure you hit that subscribe button and leave a like if you haven't already. If you do enjoy the free content over on YouTube, and if you want some extra content, do have that over on the Patreon. Got the entire spreadsheet, cheat sheets, color coded nice and neat, so it's quite easy to follow the projections, optimizers, all that fun stuff, not just for the NFL, but the NBA and the MLB and NASCAR once those seasons start back up again. So go check it out. You know where to find it. And since we're close to the end of the month, if you do want to sign up, can refund that for you as long as you stay signed up on the 1st of January if you want to get this last week for free. And last but not least, this video is sponsored by PrizePicks. I'm sure most of you know what it is by now, but if you don't, it's daily fantasy sports simplified, just you versus the projections. There's no sharks, 150 max contests, or salary cap restrictions, or anything like that. Just you versus the props they offer each and every single day. And as of right now, if you sign over there, you can get a free money bonus up to $100 when you use code CPEN and tell them I sent you. So it's free money. One easy to your advantage, and PrizePicks is really fun to play on. They have some really soft lines, and it's been quite profitable. Just make sure you know what you're looking for, and you can definitely take advantage of some of those lines over on PrizePicks. But I think that's it for the plugs for the most part. So without further ado, let's dive into today's video. And moving on to core play number 1, I am not dividing these guys by cash or tournaments this week. It's been Christmas weekend. It's been pretty busy for me, so I'm just going over some of my absolute favorite plays on the slate, disregarding whether I think they're better cash or tournament plays. We have James Robinson, number 1 here, below $6,000. He was a great play last week versus the Texans. He was only $5,400. Only got a $500 price increase despite seeing the most touches he's seen in a game all season, 18 carries and 6 targets with the departure of Urban Meyer. And if you liked him last week versus the Texans, there's no reason you shouldn't like him here in a very similar spot and a similar price point versus the New York Jets. As awful as they've been versus the run this year, I would really take any other running back in the league. But we saw Duke Johnson last week, like around 30 fantasy points. If Duke Johnson can do it, I think James Robinson can do it. Very talented running back who should see 20 plus touches here, and I love this price point a lot. Currently have him projected just under 19 fantasy points, which is fantastic for the price that he's coming in this weekend. Also have him for above 20% ownership. I would expect him to be very popular. Would not be surprised if he comes in higher owned than that. I do change my ownership projections by the time Sunday rolls around, but as of right now, do have him near the very tops in terms of ownership, which I think is definitely deserving. His prop over on PrizePicks is currently sitting at 75.5 yards. I could see that hitting the over as long as the Jaguars are not trailing in this game. As long as they can establish the run and not fall behind like they did last week versus the Falcons, surprisingly, I think he should be able to hit the over on that. And he should be involved in the passing game a little bit, which does boost his floor. But the main appeal here is the matchup versus the Jets. Like, they have just been so bad versus running backs this year. They're 32nd DVA versus the run, which is dead last in fantasy points allowed per game, over 36 points, over 120 rushing yards, 1.5 rushing touchdowns, 6.5 catches, and nearly 60 receiving yards. This is about as good of a spot you can ask for James Robinson. He's way too cheap, should probably be around $7,000. I'm definitely looking to take advantage of that, as will most people, but he's a tough fade for me this weekend. And moving on to core play number 2, he is very expensive, but we have money to spend this weekend because we're probably spending down a tight end, probably going with a cheap defense. At least that's what I'm doing for sure. I'm definitely saving money at the running back position this week. As you're going to see, we have 3 running backs on this video, and they're all below $6,000. So we have money to spend. If I'm not spending it at those positions, where's it going to go? I can spend a little bit of money for quarterback, probably going to go around $6,000 to $7,000. But that means I have money to spend for an expensive wide receiver. My number 1 guy this week, and everyone's number 1 guy, it's Cooper KUPP. $9,100, currently have him projected to be the highest owned player on the entire slate, around 40% ownership, which is extremely high for an 11-game slate. But I would not be surprised, because if you're just building lineups this weekend, you kind of just fall into playing Cooper KUPP. And there's no reason not to like him. I currently have him projected for close to 30 fantasy points. I actually had him projected for 32. I had to tone it down a little bit because 32 was just overly excessive in my opinion, but I would not be surprised if he exceeds this. He's facing the team that's allowing the most points per game to fantasy wide receivers, and there's been no better fantasy wide receiver this season than Cooper KUPP. He's getting over 11.5 targets per game this season, nearly 9 catches, over 115 receiving yards, a touchdown per game. There's just no reason at all not to like KUPP. He just falls into your lap roster construction-wise this week. And over on PrizePicks, currently sitting at 103.5 yards on his prop, which is actually about 10 or so yards under his average so far this season. And my favorite is probably that 23 fantasy score, because I have him projected for nearly 10 points higher than that. I know you don't get the bonus like you do on DraftKings over on PrizePicks, but it's still PPR. And it's not going to take much for Cooper Kupp to hit that. So I think I like the over on the fantasy points a little bit more than I do like the yards. And moving on to our third core play of another wide receiver here, and it's Antonio Brown, $4,900, going to be the wide receiver one, clear-cut wide receiver one this weekend for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Currently projecting him around 17.5 points, which is fantastic for his price point. Over 30% ownership. I mean, everyone's going to be playing Antonio Brown. It's kind of obvious. There's no Chris Godwin. There's no Mike Evans. You take those guys out of the equation, I mean, you just kind of land right on Antonio Brown. There's no reason not to like him besides being high ownership. I understand wanting to fade in tournaments, but I have a hard time seeing AB not get there. He's had fantastic games with both those guys playing. You take them out of the equation. He's got like Chris Godwin averaging close to 9 targets per game, and recently we saw how much Chris Godwin was getting with AB being out. And also Mike Evans out of the equation. We're left with Antonio Brown, Tyler Johnson, and guys like Scotty Miller, and and Gronkowski, I guess you want to count at the tight end spot. Plus Nolan Fournette, who does get plenty of targets. That's going to be a bump for Rojo this weekend. But Antonio Brown's the guy that's going to get a heavy workload here. Would not be surprised if he gets 10 plus touches, or 10 plus targets, I should say. I don't think he's going to get any carries. But on the season, he's averaging about 8.5 targets per game, 83 receiving yards, and he's going to be the main guy. Tom Brady was awful last week. The Bucs were in general, scoring 0 points. Brady's going to come out with some vengeance and probably put a beat down on the Panthers. I want a part of that. Antonio Brown's going to be the number one guy, so you can sign me up for that all day. 11 AB. Know he's going to be high owned, but cash games, got to play him in tournaments. I understand wanting to get off of him, but guys in this price range just do not look appealing. We have Jacoby Myers, Robbie Anderson, KJ Osborne, Jamison Crowder, Jerry Jeudy, Chase Claypool. He definitely stands out above the rest here in his prop over on PrizePicks. No yardage props or receptions, but he does have a 14 fantasy score prop, which I do have him currently projected over. I think it'll be close. Might have to score a touchdown to get that, but I do like hitting the over on that. And moving on to core play number 4, we have Justin Jackson at $4,200. The chalk continues here. It's going to be a very, very chalky week. I would expect a lot of lineup trains, but it's really hard to get off of these guys. If you're using an optimizer, like I am, my own, these are the guys that are popping up the most. And they're getting poured in all of my lineups, and it's just one of those weeks where they kind of got to accept the fact there's going to be a lot of chalk, and a lot of it is really good chalk. Like we have, I'm not saying he's Austin Eckler, but you have the Austin Eckler roll this weekend on the Chargers for $4,200. That is really hard to pass up, in my opinion. Have him projected for around 16 fantasy points, and just do the math on the projection with the salary and point per otherwise, yeah, he's looking really, really good this weekend. Have him for around 20% ownership. Could see that getting hiked up even more, maybe closer to 30% by the time people recover from Christmas in the morning and the afternoon and realize, yeah, we should probably play some Justin Jackson with no Austin Eckler this weekend. I will say Joshua Kelly might be annoying, still goal line touchdown, but I think Jackson will be protective enough to definitely produce his salary this weekend. And over on PrizePicks, couldn't find any yardage, reception props, or anything like that. Only a 14 fantasy score, which I'm not a huge fan of that. I do have him for a couple points higher, but I could see him hitting under that unless he scores a touchdown. But I think he'll be pretty close to it. And moving on to our 5th core play, we have Rojo, our second Buccaneer here, $5,100. And there's a common theme in a lot of these plays this weekend. It's going to be guys that are going to benefit from guys being out due to an injury or on the COVID list, but that's just kind of how DFS works. And we have guys that are going to be in roles that doesn't really reflect their price tag. They're going to become, obviously, great plays on DraftKings or FanDuel, whatever site you're playing on. But I'm projected for close to 16 points this weekend, around 25% ownership. I mean, very, very high owned. I actually have him as the highest running back on the slate right now, although it is going to be very, very close between him, Justin Jackson, and James Robinson, in my opinion. And he also has the same PrizePicks prop at 14 fantasy points, and I was a little disappointed that we couldn't find any yardage or reception props over there. But he's taking over the Leonard Fournette role, which is a very good role to have. And with the entire team being out, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette, and a lot of guys on the defensive side, the ball's going to go somewhere. And I think for the most part, it's going to be AB and Ronald Jones. I'm not saying Ronald Jones is an amazing talent or anything. I definitely think Leonard Fournette's a better running back than him. But if he's going to get me 15 plus carries and maybe close to 5 targets, I will take that all day at this price point. The Buccaneers should be in scoring position a lot. I wouldn't say the Panthers are a cakewalk matchup, but I definitely trust Tom Brady more than I do their defense. So I'm just hoping for like a goal line touchdown or two from Ronald Jones and at least a productive game on the ground. Not saying he has to be super efficient, but if he can get me 50, 60 yards on the ground and maybe 10 to 20 through the air with a couple of catches, hopefully get into the end zone, he'll be a very good play on DraftKings at this price. In our 6th and final core play, we have Keenan Allen, $7,700, another guy that will benefit with someone being out, and that would be Mike Williams and Austin Eckler. The ball's going to go somewhere. And the Chargers have a pretty high implied team total, so I like Justin Herbert a lot, so I got to pair him with somebody. Yes, we have Jared Cook. Yes, we have Justin Jackson potentially out of the backfield. We have guys like Palmer, no Parham. We also have Jalen Guyton. But Keenan Allen's going to be the guy here. I would be very shocked if he doesn't get around 10 or so targets, hopefully 10 to 15, hopefully on the upper end of that spectrum. But Allen should smash versus the Texans. Now, the only concern here would be that the game doesn't end up being close because they blow out the Texans. But I think with some guys being out, that could help them just not absolutely blow the doors off of the Houston Texans here. Hopefully they keep it close. I do have my concerns with that. But I love Keenan at this price. I can fit him in easily because I'm spending down at running back. Like, we've talked about so many value plays in this video. It's not like I'm talking about all these expensive guys. Like, all these guys we talked about are like around $5,000, if not cheaper, with Antonio Brown and Justin Jackson. So we have the money to spend, and I like allocating my funds towards guys like Keenan Allen and Cooper Kupp, guys that are going to see heavy volume through the passing game, guys that are very good, and it's just hard not to like Keenan here. I love Justin Herbert. I want to pair him with somebody. Keenan Allen is that guy. I'm currently projected at around 22 fantasy points, which is the second highest, only behind Cooper Kupp. Now, it is a pretty big drop-off, around 30 points to 22, but that's just a testimony on how good Cooper Kupp has been this season. Have him just under 20% ownership, and his price picks prop is sitting at 17 fantasy points. Once again, could not find a receiving yardage prop on Keenan Allen, which was kind of odd. I think they might have took it off because of Mike Williams being rolled out, or maybe even Austin Eckler. Not sure why. But 17 fantasy points, I don't mind hitting the over on that, because if he's going to give me 7+ catches, hopefully 10+ targets, probably around 100 receiving yards, and I'd say a decent chance he finds the end zone in this game versus the Houston Texans, on a defense you should worry about. I do think Allen's a great play. But with that being said, I think that'll be it for the video. So I hope it was helpful, and if it was, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. And don't forget, this video was sponsored by Price Picks, just you versus the projections. And as of right now, if you're new sign over there, you can get a free money bonus up to $100. Use code CPEN and tell them I sent you. That'll be it. I will stop rambling. I wish you guys the best of luck on Sunday. Hope you had a fantastic Christmas. Caught all the things you wanted. Had a great time with family, friends, or whoever it may be. But I'll see you guys in the next one. And wishing you all the best of luck.